Hello, Kira's minds and dedicated English learners. Welcome back to Super English Talks. I'm Sarah, and I am absolutely thrilled to embark on today's profound and utterly captivating linguistic journey with you. If you're here to truly sharpen your one English listening skills, to dramatically expand your vocabulary with real-life academical conversation, and to gain a deeper, more nuanced understanding of how language intricately reflects, powerfully influences, and beautifully preserves culture, then you have found your intellectual haven. This session is designed as a deep dive, a podcast-style lesson that will rigorously challenge and effectively train your ears to understand native English speakers, even when discussing complex and abstract concepts. It's ideally suited for students diligently preparing for high-stakes exams such as IELTS, TOEFL, or CEFR-C1 exams, where a sophisticated grasp of spoken English is paramount, but equally, it's perfect for anyone who genuinely loves engaging in deep, thought-provoking discussions in English. For those who seek more than just superficial comprehension, so settle in perhaps with a cup of your favorite beverage, clear your mind of distractions, and let's unlock the immense power that language holds within the very fabric of human culture. This isn't just about passive listening. It's about active contemplation, about forging new neural pathways for advanced understanding. The topic we're exploring today. The power of language and culture is incredibly rich and multifaceted, isn't it? It invites us to consider language not merely as a tool for communication, a collection of words and grammar rules, but as an inseparable part of our identity, our history, and our collective consciousness at the C1 level. When we discuss such abstract concepts, the listening challenge intensifies. We're moving beyond simple factual recall and into the realm of understanding complex arguments, identifying subtle nuances, and appreciating the speaker's perspective on an intricate subject. This is where your ear needs to be highly attuned, picking up on the delicate threads of meaning woven through a conversation. Think about it. Every language carries within it centuries of a community's unique experiences, their values, their worldview, and their way of life. It's like a living archive. For instance, the very structure of a language can shape how its speakers perceive reality. Some languages have multiple words for concepts that English might condense into one, or vice versa. This isn't just a matter of vocabulary, it's a difference in conceptualization, a fascinating window into how different cultures categorize and understand the world around them. Today, through this podcast-style format, I will be your primary speaker, articulating various facets of this relationship between language and culture. I'll present different theories, offer compelling examples, and even simulate opposing viewpoints or delve into the intricacies of specific linguistic phenomena, all to provide you with a comprehensive and challenging listening experience. My aim is to model the kind of nuanced academic level discourse you would encounter in a lecture, a high-level discussion, or a sophisticated podcast, helping you train your ears to follow complex arguments with ease. You'll be listening to me delve into historical examples philosophical implications, and contemporary applications of this powerful interplay. Asterisk. Let's begin by considering how language reflects culture. It's an incredibly profound connection. Take, for instance, the vocabulary of a language, the words that exist or don't exist in a particular lexicon often tell us a great deal about what is important to that culture. Consider the Inuit languages, which famously have numerous words for different types of snow, a concept that might be condensed into just a few terms in English. This isn't because they're inherently more complex. It's because snow is a central and vital element of their environment and survival. Their very existence is intertwined with understanding these distinctions, so their language reflects that environmental reality and cultural priority. Conversely, in cultures where certain concepts are less prominent, their language might have fewer specific terms. This doesn't mean the concept is absent, but it highlights a different cultural emphasis. Furthermore, beyond vocabulary, consider idiomatic expressions and proverbs. These are miniature cultural capsules. They often contain wisdom, historical context, or societal values distilled into a concise phrase. For example, the English idiom to bite the bullet reflects a cultural value of stoicism and endurance in the face of hardship, possibly originating from a time when soldiers bit lead bullets to cope with pain during surgery. Understanding such an idiom requires not just linguistic knowledge, but also a degree of cultural insight. As C1 listeners, when you encounter these expressions, your challenge is to move beyond a literal interpretation and grasp the deeper cultural resonance. You're training your ear to recognize these as established cultural references rather than just a string of individual words. My goal in this podcast is to use such examples and elaborate on their cultural significance, allowing you to hear how these ideas are articulated in advanced English. Moving beyond reflection. Let's explore how language influences culture. This is often where the philosophical debate becomes quite compelling. There's a hypothesis known as linguistic relativity, or the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which in its stronger form suggests that the language we speak actually determines or limits our thought processes. While the strong version is largely debated, a weaker version proposes that language influences our perception and categorization of the world. For instance, some languages explicitly distinguish between different types of love with separate words, whereas English often uses one broad term. Does this mean speakers of those languages experience love differently, or are they simply more attuned to its various facets due to their linguistic tools? This is a fascinating question. Consider how the presence or absence of gendered nouns in a language might subtly influence perceptions of gender roles within a society, or how languages with elaborate systems for indicating respect or hierarchy in their grammar can reinforce social structures. When we use certain linguistic structures or vocabulary, we are subtly reinforcing certain ways of thinking and behaving, and you might immediately contend, but surely our thoughts aren't completely dictated by our language. And indeed, that's a valid point. Most modern linguistic theories lean towards a more reciprocal relationship. Language influences thought, and thought also influences language. It's a dynamic, ongoing interplay. However, the influence is undeniably there. For advanced English listeners, The challenge here is to follow these nuanced, often abstract arguments. I'll be using precise academic vocabulary, complex sentence structures, and rhetorical devices to present these ideas. Your task is to track the argument, identify the main claim, understand the supporting evidence, even if it's hypothetical, and grasp the opposing viewpoints that are being considered. This is the essence of C1, listening, dissecting complex trains of thought expressed in sophisticated English, asterisk, and then we come to the crucial role of language in preserving culture. This is perhaps one of its most profound and often overlooked. Power. Language is the primary vessel through which oral traditions, stories, myths, historical accounts, and ancestral knowledge are passed down through generations. When a language is lost, an entire worldview, a unique way of understanding and interacting with the world, is also lost. It's a significant cultural erosion. Think of indigenous languages around the world, many of which are critically endangered. These languages often contain unique ecological knowledge, traditional medicinal practices, and philosophical concepts that are inextricably linked to their specific environment and cultural heritage. The words themselves might describe specific plants, animals, or natural phenomena in a way that no other language can. The very act of speaking and teaching a native language to the next generation is a powerful act of cultural preservation. It ensures that the unique narratives, songs, and ceremonies of a people continue to live on. Furthermore, language preserves identity. For diaspora communities, retaining their ancestral language often serves as a vital link to their heritage, their roots, and their sense of belonging. It allows them to access original texts, to understand cultural references firsthand, and to communicate with elders in their native tongue. This connection is not merely sentimental. It's fundamental to cultural continuity. As listeners, when I discuss the nuances of cultural preservation, pay attention to the emotional register in my voice. The weight I give to certain words like endangered, erosion, or vital link. These vocal cues, combined with the academic vocabulary, help convey the gravity and significance of the topic. Your challenge is to process this blend of factual information, abstract concepts, and underlying emotional resonance, demonstrating a holistic comprehension of the speaker's message.
So, how do we actively engage in listening exercises to achieve that native-like ear? It's about moving beyond passive reception to active processing. One exceptionally powerful technique is what's known as intensive listening. This involves selecting a short audio segment, perhaps 1 to 2 minutes long, and listening to it repeatedly with a specific focus each time. The first listen, just try to get the gist, the main idea. The second listen, focus on identifying new vocabulary and expressions. Jot them down, even if you can't spell them perfectly. The third listen, concentrate on connected speech, reductions, and intonation. How do words link? Which syllables are stressed? The fourth listen, try to transcribe the entire segment word for word. This is an incredibly challenging, but profoundly rewarding exercise that forces your ear to pick up every sound. Compare your transcription to an actual script if available. You'll uncover amazing insights into your listening blind spots. Another highly effective strategy is predictive listening. Before you listen to a podcast episode or an interview, read the title or a brief description and try to predict what vocabulary, themes, or arguments might come up. This activates your existing knowledge and prepares your brain for the incoming information. As you listen, actively confirm or adjust your predictions. This engages your critical thinking skills and trains you to anticipate conversational flow, a key aspect of native comprehension. Furthermore, don't shy away from listening to content at a slightly faster speed once you're comfortable with the normal pace. Many podcast apps and YouTube have speed controls. Gradually increasing the playback speed trains your brain to process information more quickly and efficiently, mimicking the demands of fast, natural conversations. However, use this judiciously, okay? The goal is comprehension, not just speed, okay? Begin with a 1.25x speed, and if you can still comprehend, slowly move up. Let's delve deeper into acquiring advanced vocabulary and those elusive expressions that characterize native speech. At the C1 level, it's not simply about knowing the definition of a word, but understanding its connotation, its common collocations, and the contexts in which it's used. For instance, consider the idea of improvement. A native speaker might use a range of words depending on the specific nuance, ameliorate to make something better. Often used in formal or abstract contexts, enhance to improve the quality or value of something, refine to improve by making small changes, or bolster to support or strengthen. Training your ears means recognizing these distinctions when you hear them. When someone says we need to ameliorate the working conditions, your ear should register the formal, perhaps slightly detached nature of the improvement being discussed. Or if someone says this software will bolster our cybersecurity, you understand it's about strengthening an existing system. Similarly, mastering phrasal verbs is absolutely paramount. They are incredibly common in spoken English and often have meanings that are not immediately obvious from their individual parts. Think of to call off, to cancel, to put off, to postpone, to come across, to find by chance, or to break down, to stop working, or to become emotionally distressed. When you hear the meeting was called off, your ear needs to register that as canceled without hesitation. Okay. The best way to internalize these is through extensive listening and contextual learning. Pay attention to how native speakers use them in natural conversation. When you encounter a new phrasal verb, don't just look up its definition. Try to find examples of its use in sentences. You can use online dictionaries that provide example sentences, or even search for clips on YouTube where the phrase is used. The more you see and hear them in authentic contexts, the more naturally you'll begin to understand and even use them. This is how native speakers absorb language, not through rote memorization, but through meaningful exposure. One of the biggest hurdles in training your ears like a native at the C1 level is overcoming the urge to translate every word in your head. This process significantly slows down your comprehension and prevents you from keeping up with natural speech. Native speakers don't translate. They understand directly, instinctively. Your goal is to build that direct connection between the changed English sounds and their meaning. This requires a shift from word-by-word decoding to chunk-by-chunk processing. You're trying to grasp ideas, phrases, and entire clauses as single units of meaning. Imagine listening to a complex lecture or a fast-paced news report. If you're mentally translating, you'll inevitably fall behind. Instead, aim to develop your ability to infer from context. Even if you encounter an unfamiliar word or idiom, try to understand its meaning based on the surrounding words, the speaker's tone, and the overall topic. This skill is critical because, in real life, you won't always have a dictionary or a transcript. It's about building resilience and adaptability in your listening. Furthermore, a native ear is accustomed to various accents. While many learners focus on a standard accent, the global reality of English means you'll encounter a vast array of pronunciations, consciously exposing yourself to different regional accents, be it Australian, Irish, Scottish, or even various non-native accents. Speaking English fluently will significantly broaden your auditory flexibility. Don't let an unfamiliar accent be a barrier to comprehension. Start by watching interviews or documentaries with speakers from diverse backgrounds. At first, it might be challenging, but with consistent exposure, your ear will gradually adjust, becoming more adept at recognizing different phonetic patterns. This broad exposure is paramount for true C1 level listening proficiency and for preparing you for the richness of global English communication. So, how do we integrate this training? Your ears like a native into your daily routine in a way that feels sustainable and enjoyable. It's about finding opportunities for immersion everywhere. Beyond dedicated listening exercises, think about passive and active exposure throughout your day. For instance, when you're commuting, instead of music, put on an English podcast on a topic you love, even if you're not actively dissecting every word. The continuous exposure familiarizes your ear with the rhythm and cadence of the language. When you're doing chores around the house, play an English radio station or an audiobook. The background noise of authentic English, slowly but surely, improves your passive comprehension. For active engagement, consider joining online discussion groups or language exchange partners. Having real-time conversations, even if you're primarily listening, forces you to process information quickly and respond appropriately. You'll get immediate feedback on your comprehension. And it's a fantastic way to experience the spontaneity of natural dialogue. Another powerful tool is using English for your hobbies. If you enjoy cooking, watch cooking shows in English. You love gaming, play games with English voice acting or commentary. If you're into fitness, follow English-speaking fitness instructors. The more you connect your English learning with your passions, the less it feels like a chore, and the more it becomes an integral part of your life. This natural integration is how true, native-like fluency is cultivated. It's about creating an environment where English is not just studied, but lived. And finally, don't underestimate the power of simply observing. Listen to how people interact in English movies and TV shows. Pay attention to their reactions. their body language, and how their speech aligns with their nonverbal cues. This holistic approach to listening will provide you with a much richer understanding of authentic communication, * the journey to C1 Advanced English Listening. To truly training your ears like a native is one of continuous growth, rewarding challenges, and ultimately, profound personal and professional enrichment. It involves a shift in mindset from merely hearing to actively processing, from translating to intuitively understanding. By consistently exposing yourself to authentic English, by engaging with real-life dialogues and podcasts, by consciously practicing techniques like shadowing and transcription, and by eagerly absorbing advanced vocabulary and expressions in context, you are building an incredibly robust foundation for true fluency. Remember, every time you push through a challenging listening piece, every time you grasp a new idiom, you are wiring your brain to become more proficient and more confident in English. This dedication isn't just about achieving a certificate. It's about unlocking a world of global communication, richer experiences, and deeper connections. I have immense faith in your ability to achieve these lofty goals. Your commitment to watching and engaging with sessions like this is a testament to your drive. Kive's momentum, remain curious, and embrace every listening opportunity as a chance to grow.
To make this more concrete, let's consider some real-life English dialogues and scenarios that highlight these principles. Imagine an anthropologist giving a guest lecture to a group of university students. The topic is the unique kinship terms in a remote Amazonian tribe. The anthropologist might explain, unlike English, where we have a relatively simple system of aunt or uncle, this particular language boasts a highly elaborate system distinguishing between maternal and paternal aunts and uncles, older and younger siblings of parents, and even the relative age of cousins, all embedded within their very vocabulary. This nuance is not arbitrary. It underpins their social structure and their intricate web of familial responsibilities. As listeners, you'd be hearing not just factual information, but the enthusiasm and academic rigor of the speaker. You'd focus on vocabulary, like kinship, terms, elaborate system, nuance, underpins, and intricate web. You'd also pay attention to how the speaker uses comparative structures to highlight the differences between the tribal language and English, which is a common feature of academic discourse. Or let's imagine a segment from a cultural podcast where two hosts are discussing the phenomenon of untranslatable words, words that exist in one language but have no direct equivalent in another. Often because they encapsulate a unique cultural concept. One host might say, the German word Schadenfreude, that feeling of pleasure derived from another person's misfortune. It's a perfect illustration. We have to expound upon it in English. There's no single word that encapsulates that complex emotion. That single word in German speaks volumes about a particular cultural perspective on human psychology. The other host might chime in. Absolutely. Or the Japanese concept of ikigai, finding your reason for being, the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. It's more than just purpose. It's a profound cultural philosophy wrapped up in one term. Here, you're listening for the host's conversational style. Their use of discourse markers like, Absolutely. And how they collaboratively build an argument. You're also learning specific untranslatable words and how native speakers discuss the very concept of and profound cultural philosophy. This kind of authentic, slightly informal but intellectually rich conversation is paramount for C1 listening practice. So, how do we actively engage in listening exercises to truly harness the power of language and culture? It's about strategic engagement. One highly effective technique for this topic is contextual inference. When you hear a word or a phrase related to a cultural concept that you don't immediately recognize, instead of panicking or stopping, try to infer its meaning from the surrounding words, the overall theme, and even the speaker's tone. For instance, if I were to say, the indigenous ceremony was crucial for maintaining social cohesion within the community, symbolizing their communal bonds and ancestral reverence, and you didn't know social cohesion, you could infer its meaning. From communal bonds and ancestral reverence, it's about unity and shared values. This skill is vital because in real life, you won't always have a dictionary at hand. Another powerful exercise, particularly for academic level discourse, is argument mapping. As you listen to a podcast or a lecture on a complex topic like ours, try to map out the speaker's argument. What's the main thesis? What are the supporting points? Are there counter-arguments presented? How are these points connected? This could involve drawing a simple diagram or using bullet points. This forces your brain to actively process the logical flow of ideas rather than just passively receiving information. It's about understanding the architecture of the conversation. Furthermore, active recall is crucial. After listening to a segment that discusses a particular cultural concept or a linguistic phenomenon, pause and try to summarize it in your own words. Could you explain the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis to someone else after listening to my discussion? The act of explaining forces you to solidify your understanding and identify any gaps in your comprehension. You could even try to articulate what you believe the speaker's underlying message or bias might be, demonstrating a deeper critical engagement. Asterisk, let's broaden our vocabulary related to language and culture. At the C1 level, you'll encounter a rich tapestry of terms beyond the obvious words like tradition or identity. Consider terms like cultural lexicon, the specific set of words and phrases particular to a culture, linguistic preservation, the effort to maintain endangered languages, cultural hegemony, the dominance of one culture's values through language, ethnolinguistics, the study of the relationship between language and culture, or intercultural communication between people of different cultural backgrounds. When you hear these terms, your ear needs to recognize them instantly and connect them to their specific academic or analytical meaning. For instance, if I were to say, the influx of globalized media often leads to a subtle form of cultural hegemony, where dominant linguistic norms are inadvertently imposed. You would need to understand cultural hegemony in that critical context. Similarly, expressions are vital beyond general idioms. There are phrases specific to cultural discussions, for example, to bridge the cultural gap, to overcome differences between cultures, to get lost in translation when the meaning or nuance is lost when translating between languages, to be steeped in tradition, to be deeply immersed in or influenced by traditions, or to be a cultural melting pot, a place where different cultures mix and blend Imagine hearing, despite our best efforts. Some jokes inevitably get lost in translation when moving between languages. Your ear should register the idea of untranslatability immediately. Or, New York City is often lauded as a true cultural melting pot where diverse linguistic backgrounds converge. Here, melting pot should evoke the image of cultural fusion. The best way to acquire these is through deliberate exposure to academic papers, documentaries, and podcasts that discuss cultural topics. Pay attention to how experts and commentators articulate these complex ideas, and notice the specific terminology they employ. Then try to incorporate these into your own active vocabulary. One of the inherent challenges in C1 English listening challenges with academic level conversation is the density of information and the complexity of the arguments. Unlike casual conversation, academic discourse often requires a sustained level of concentration to follow intricate logical chains. Native speakers who engage in such discussions are accustomed to unpacking complex ideas and presenting them with precision. Your ear needs to be trained to identify not just the facts, but the connections between those facts, the logical progression from premise to conclusion. This is where active listening truly becomes a cognitive exercise. Furthermore, at this level, speakers often use a more formal register with fewer contractions and more complete sentence structures, even in a podcast-style format like this. However, they will still use natural intonation, pausing, and emphasis to guide the listener. For instance, I might emphasize a word like inseparable when talking about language and culture to convey its profound connection, or I might pause before introducing a counterargument, signaling a shift in perspective. Your ear needs to pick up on these subtle linguistic signals that provide clues about the speaker's intent and the structure of their argument. Another aspect of academic listening is discerning between objective information and subjective opinion or interpretation. A speaker might present a theory objective and then offer their critique of it subjective. Being able to distinguish between these different types of information is vital for comprehensive understanding and critical engagement with the content. This level of discernment is a hallmark of truly advanced listening. It's about not just hearing the words, but evaluating their purpose and their place within the broader discourse. Asterisk. The journey to mastering C1 English listening, particularly for complex and abstract topics like the power of language and culture, is a testament to your dedication and intellectual curiosity. It's a continuous process of refining your auditory discrimination, expanding your cognitive processing speed, and deepening your understanding of the intricate relationship between language and human experience. By engaging with academic-level conversations, by deliberately dissecting arguments, by actively building your vocabulary related to nuanced concepts, and by immersing yourself in authentic, thought-provoking content, you are not just improving your English, you are broadening your horizons and enhancing your critical thinking abilities. Remember, every challenging phrase you decipher, every complex argument you follow is a significant step forward. Embrace the challenge. Remain persistent. And know that your efforts are building a profound linguistic foundation. I have no doubt that with continued practice, you will achieve an unparalleled level of comprehension and fluency in English. allowing you to engage with any discussion, no matter how intricate. Asterisk. Thank you so much for joining me today on Super English Talks for this C1 English Listening Challenge, focusing on the immense power of language in culture. I sincerely hope you found this deep dive stimulating, challenging, and incredibly beneficial for your advanced English listening skills. If you enjoyed this podcast style lesson and found it valuable, please consider giving it a thumbs up, sharing it with your fellow passionate English learners, and most importantly, subscribing to Super English Talks for even more advanced lesson discussions and listening practice. I always appreciate your engagement and feedback, so please leave a comment below. What aspects of language and culture fascinate you the most? What other academic topics would you like me to explore in future listening challenges? Your input truly helps me shape the content to best serve your learning journey. Until next time, keep listening intently, keep exploring boldly, and keep speaking English with profound confidence. See you very soon.